In 16th century Europe, Spain led the charge in overseas expansion. As Spain ventured into the Americas, other European nations soon followed, each seeking to establish their own presence across the Atlantic. The Spanish kingdom, brand new at the time, sponsored the voyage of a man named Christopher Columbus in 1492. Spain was trying to find a new route to China because nations like Portugal and cities like Venice already had the good routes around Africa and across the Asian continent. Columbus's voyage paid off, and Spain learned that there was an entire continent across the ocean. They established colonies in the Bahamas and Cuba and started exploring North America in 1513 as they mapped the area they named Florida. However, they really made news after conquering the Aztec Empire in 1521 and gaining the wealth of Mexico. Spain became instantly wealthy, profiting from the gold, silver, spices, flowers, foods, and minerals of the New World. The treasure ships sailing back to Spain, overflowing with goods, were enough to convince the other European nations to start colonizing the lands north of Spanish control. Although Sweden, Norway, Denmark, and other nations managed to establish colonies, the biggest contenders were France, Britain, and the Netherlands. French efforts to colonize the Americas began around 1534, when the explorer Jacques Cartier began charting the St. Lawrence River, the major waterway between the Atlantic and the Great Lakes. Cartier was looking for a northern sea route to the Pacific Ocean, but ended up founding the colony New France. French ships and French fur trappers visited the colony, but did not establish true settlements for many years. In 1608, the French, under Samuel de Champlain and Pierre de Gaulle founded the city of Quebec in the part of the territory called Canada. Although settlement was originally slow, by 1640 around 355 colonists lived there. The French tried to make alliances with the local native groups, notably the Algonquin and Huron. They fought alongside the native people in local power struggles and maintained good relationships with them, establishing crucial trade networks with the native people of the Americas. The French traders and explorers were some of the first Europeans to encounter most of modern North America. In the late 17th century, they also extended south, founding the colony of Louisiana in 1682. For most of the early colonial period, the French interests in the Americas were in fur trapping and trading with the indigenous people, although they also hunted for gold and other treasures. The first British settlement in North America was St. John's in Newfoundland, Canada, around 1520. However, it could not sustain a year-round population until 1620, a century later. The first major attempt to create a British colony in the modern-day United States was at Roanoke, in present-day North Carolina, in 1587. Historians call this the Lost Colony, so you may be able to guess how that turned out. By the time a ship arrived with fresh supplies in 1590, the colony was abandoned, and the people gone, with their exact whereabouts and destiny serving as a long-standing historical mystery. In 1606, the British got serious, and King James I formed the Virginia Company to settle North America. It did so in 1607 at Jamestown, the first permanent English settlement in the Americas. Jamestown, located in Virginia, was beset by disease and starvation. The powerful Powhatan Confederacy, a coalition of Algonquin-speaking people under the leadership of Chief Powhatan, took pity on the colonists. The Powhatan and other native allies showed the colonists how to farm, hunt, and basically how to survive. The fact that the English colonists were starving in one of the most naturally abundant places on the continent must have seemed strange to the native people, but the English did not arrive prepared to farm. They arrived prepared to dig for gold, expecting the riches that Spain had found in Mexico. British colonists came to the Americas for several reasons. The colonists of Jamestown, led by John Smith, were adventurers and businessmen. Other groups were seeking religious freedom in the colonies. The Puritans were a conservative denomination of the English Church, who were politically and socially isolated in England. In 1620, they formed a settlement in Plymouth, Massachusetts. The Puritan Pilgrims found a place to worship freely, and also developed relations with the Native American leader, Squanto, whose Patuxet people helped the Pilgrims survive their first years. The area where the Pilgrims settled became a major destination for English colonists in years to come, and became known as New England. Like the French, the Dutch were originally exploring the Americas to find a quicker route to the Pacific Ocean, and thus the trade routes of China. They hired the English explorer Henry Hudson in 1609, who ended up at Cape Cod in what is now Massachusetts. Hudson continued along in the coast until running into modern-day New York. Later voyages to map the area established it as part of the Dutch Empire under the name New Netherlands. On the island of Manhattan, first surveyed by Hudson, the Dutch built a trading fort called New Amsterdam in 1625. This is the foundation of what would one day become New York City. They began trading with the local Native American groups and became very connected to the fur trade within a few years. New Amsterdam was a major trade port in the North Atlantic, but the Dutch presence was not long-lasting. After a series of wars with the English, the Dutch surrendered New Amsterdam in 1664, at which point the English named it New York. The entire New Netherlands colony was relinquished to England in 1674. Spain was the first European nation to begin colonizing the Americas, starting with Christopher Columbus's discoveries in 1492. Spain was the first European nation at the time to begin exploring North America, mapping out Florida, but their real fame came from defeating the Aztecs of Mexico in 1521. Spain discovered gold, silver, spices, and valuable trade partners with the local people and became rich. That's when all the other kingdoms decided to start colonizing the Americas as well. France started exploring the northern part of the continent around 1534, when Jacques Cartier started looking for a northern sea route to China. He ended up founding New France, and later the French would build an important trading center called Quebec. The British came to North America looking for gold, and after the failed Roanoke colony, established Jamestown in 1607. European conservative groups like the Pilgrims also came to the Americas seeking religious freedom and founded the Plymouth settlement. The Dutch were interested in establishing local trade networks, and Henry Hudson mapped out the area of the New Netherlands. Throughout the 17th century, nearly every European nation attempted to create settlements in North America.